Okay, well, it is the starting hour, and so I'm sure we'll have a few more people connecting with us, but let me ring the bell, start the meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone, and as I said before, the flag's in the room, and we'll start with the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Number one. Is it true? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And for Rotary Moment, yesterday was Earth Day. This starting tomorrow is Rotary World Immunization Week, and it's pretty interesting that this is happening now when, as far as the Earth Day, if you've seen pictures of the world, around the world, as a result of the shutdowns, it's amazing, the pictures of clear water, no smog, clean air. It's pretty amazing what can happen when we back off the busy lives that we lead. And then at the same time, with the World Immunization Week, it's very, very, very timely when we think about what we're doing now and what we're facing in the future. So that's my Rotary Moment. And visitors, I'd like to welcome Lane to the meeting. Welcome back.
Hello.
And I don't have any announcements, but I thought certainly that we haven't had our fine master in functioning form very often here on Zoom. So I'd like to call on Gary if he could share a little bit of his generosity to the club by finding members of the club.
Well, you know, unfortunately, I haven't been with Minterman and I've been social distancing, and you know that's a little bit difficult to do. I could certainly find James Haas for having a haircut and a mustache like that.
Wow. Whoa, look at that haircut.
Oh my God.
Wow. It was getting out of control. I had to do something about it. I'm channeling my inner Gary Heath.
Somebody must have dared you on something there.
Didn't I see you on Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, Dick and I have the same haircut.
Yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
It's easy to train. Just run the buzzer over it.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, and I could find Lane for having the most out of focus webcam. You know, I'm not sure I can find Lane for much because he's not a member of our club, but I think he should. If you were here, I'd make you pay. If you're not here, of course, if you were here, you wouldn't have an out of focus webcam.
Is this the program?
Let me find Carl Greenwood for being Carl Greenwood. Let's see. I could find Dick Anderson for being on the island of Capri while we're supposed to be at a meeting.
I vote we impeach the Prime Minister.
Mohan, I could find him for being on the phone.
Yeah, I'm working too. Okay, at the same time.
All right. Okay.
This is the best turnout we've had in a long time.
James.
Okay. But anybody else that has any happy dollars, they could donate it to our happy dollar lady.
I'd like to contribute $25 toward the Rotary Foundation's immunization program. I think it's just amazing what we can do collectively as Rotary clubs in the world. And they have the infrastructure, and they've been doing this for many years.
Okay. Having said that, Helen, do you want to send it in, or do you want Roger to bill you?
Which do you prefer, Roger?
It doesn't matter.
Probably make the bookkeeping easier if I send it in.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Helen, I can find you another $25 for showing us all up.
What?
For setting the bar too high for the rest of us.
Everybody sets their own bar.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
Okay, and then I'll find you another 20 for making a bar joke.
Stop.
Okay,
We'll put in-
I'll
we'll put
find
in-
Steve. I'll find Steve Lewis for being late. He probably can't even hear that yet.
Oh, there he is.
Steve
Time to
Lewis, you
start.
just got fined $25 for being late.
Okay, Gary, you're done. It's time to start the meeting.
Moment.
Well, the meeting's already started, Carl.
I'm guilty, but I had a good reason.
Yes.
Please share with us.
Lori knows that reason.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Great.
No, that's.
I'm not paying it.
I'm the dog.
It's one thing I want to take.
No,
I want to take credit for today because Carl is now in the meeting. I want Carl to know the meeting started on time and he wasn't here.
Two things.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
Okay, we'll match Helen's $25. And you can bill Lori for it. Because the governor, as press conference a couple minutes ago, he said they were in constant contact with community leaders of the communities, including Rotary and others.
Really?
Yeah.
well, if he's in constant contact, then he must know that we want to, everybody get back to normal as soon as possible.
Watch it, Gary.
Well, that's where Steve Lewis was. He was discussing it with the governor. That's why he's late.
I wasn't quite that high up the chain.
Oh.
Somebody more important, right, Lori?
Yeah. Yes. And I'm glad she was able to help you.
Oh, she was talk about a
You mean
source. Wow.
you mean you were talking to Nancy Pelosi?
Oh my God.
I'm just trying to think of who more important than the governor.
He's out shopping for more ice cream.
The Rotary member.
All right.
Okay, are there any other announcements that anyone has that they'd like to share?
No, let's go. Let's hear from that.
Fred should have gotten an invite for club officer training this afternoon, I believe.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I'll try to break away from my busy schedule.
Well, I will be
Driving
there.
around in that car.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. Fred
needs
has
a
a
fine.
big fine on that brand new
Huge.
car he got. Not
I
brand.
got a new car for my birthday.
What'd you get?
39 Cadillac.
Whoa.
What year?
39.
Okay, that'll be your fine.
$39.
1939.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Good thing it wasn't
moving right along.
Yeah, okay.
With the
Now
formal
40 minutes.
part of the meeting, we're fortunate today to have with us Richard Rubin, and Richard's agreed to talk to us about the mess that he's in, that the banks are in, not his bank, but other banks might be flowing out of Washington and not getting into the right people's hands. So Richard, over to you.
Thanks. So all the money is getting into people's hands. The challenge is when it's going to be getting into their hands. So what we've been working on for the last 3 weeks or so, what has put us all kind of in the banking bunker is a program called the Paycheck Protection Program. It's named PPP. And it was made specifically to provide economic relief for small businesses that have been impacted by the coronavirus. Qualifications are pretty simple. It can be a sole proprietorship, corporation, independent contractor, self-employed, 501c3s, veterans organizations, or tribal businesses. There are a few exceptions, but typically they have to have 500 or less employees, and the applicant must have a net worth of $15 million or less. The loan amount's based on the applicant's payroll costs, but they can use a portion of the money for rent, utilities, and interest expense. And there's a lot of confusion out there because people are adding in their rent when they do the calculation. They can use the funds for the rent, but it's only based on the payroll expenses that business has. Loan payments are deferred for typically 6 months, and then there's a 18-month term with payments that are at a 1% interest rate. Loans guaranteed 100% by the SBA, so that's kind of good. and there is a loan forgiveness built into the loan that is partially or fully granted based on use of the funds. The main purpose of this is to hire or rehire employees. Initially, the initial package was for $350 billion, and that went in and disappeared in 13 days. Not disappeared, funded in 13 days. And more funds are allocated. I haven't seen the news this morning. I know that Congress is working on it. Then it's got to go to the president, and then it goes to the SBA, and then we are able to fund the loans that didn't get funding in the first round. My bank in the first round of fundings received and approved over 14,000 loan applications totaling $4.4 billion. We were 9th in total fundings of all the banks nationwide. The average loan size for my company was about $79,000, and my branch's average loan size is about $140,000. It's been a really interesting process. I haven't been on the last 2 meetings basically because that's all I've been working on. Typically about 10 hours a day for the last couple of weeks. So the documentation is a little bit different than what we do on a normal loan that we do through the bank, where we verify all the information. The SBA requirements is just that we have that the number that's being asked for is reasonable. So all we will ask for is 940s, 1099s if it's a self-employed person. If it's self-employed, a P&L for the past year. And if it makes sense, then we go ahead and move it along to draw loan documents. Got a lot of loans that are in the completed process where we're ready to send out final loan documents, but we can't do that until we have the money from the SBA to do that. We use a system called DocuSign that most of you are pretty familiar with. The cool thing is I can talk to a customer on the phone or through Zoom. The verified information is sent out to them on a DocuSign for the loan application. And when we can finally send out the loan documents, it goes out through DocuSign. I never have to see the person face to face, which is kind of good because we're trying to do social distancing. My bank has restricted hours, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the lobby's closed except for stuff where customer can't do it through our drive up. Most of our transactions now, probably 95% of them are going through the drive up. Regular deposits go out there. If somebody needs to get in their safe deposit box, we have to bring them into the branch, of course. Important thing is keeping my employees safe and healthy. I don't want to lose any of them. And of course, keeping the customers healthy. So that's kind of the story on the PPP. Questions? I'm happy to entertain them, except I'm not a spokesman for the US government, the IRS, or anything like that. So if you have legal or SBA questions, you got to talk to Fred.
Yeah, Richard, what was I know there was the thing where $1,200 per person was sent out or is being sent out. And then there's the PPP.
Yep.
Then there's a third, is it a loan program through the banks?
What program? I'm sorry.
A third loan program through the banks. We've got the $1,200 coming out individually. We've got the PPP, and then there's a third leg of that.
Yeah, the $1,200 one I think is a stimulus that goes out to individuals.
Right.
The PPP is done by the banks. There's a $10,000 disaster program that the IRS has. It's kind of a shelf product. You apply online, the SBA funds it directly into the business's checking account. We don't get involved with that.
How do you know if that went through? Because I put in one of those.
I've had a lot of customers that want to know, and you got a reference number or something?
They don't give you anything.
No, you don't get anything.
No, thank you for applying.
Yeah.
And no email, no communication, no nothing.
Yeah.
Well,
Big black hole.
Richard, this
Remember
is
when
Carl.
I said I wasn't a spokesman for the government? This is a good time to pull that out of my pocket and say, I don't know.
Richard, do you know, assuming that the Congress passes the bill for the next, I forget how many, 350, whatever
Yeah,
it is.
something like that.
It's like 484 billion.
Do you
Yeah,
have
some of
any
that's
idea-
allocated to.
Do you have
other
any idea
groups
how
of-
quickly that will get, how soon before that'll start being doled out?
That is the question of the day, and I don't know.
Okay.
We have a process in place to start funding them as soon as we know that there's money there.
Right.
But we're waiting for the SBA to do its thing and let us know there's money that we can send out.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
thought
and
we
then,
had ours approved, but we're waiting for the second tranche.
Mm-hmm.
If I could make a couple of quick comments.
Yeah.
Okay. The other big news on the loan front was the idle loans, and they used that money up just about as fast as they used up the PPP money. So far, there's no additional funds being offered under that program. That said, one of the things that I wanted to do was to remind everyone that there are new withdrawal rules when it comes to 401k, IRA, or other ERISA type programs. If you have a financial impact, if you have the disease, if you are forced to stay at home for child care purposes or elder care purposes because of the disease, you qualify for the new rules. And the new rules are $100,000 withdrawal, no 10% penalty if you're under 59.5. And there is currently no 72T requirements, mandatory required minimum distributions for those of you who are in the 70.5 plus club. So there's a bunch of different rules out there. They are temporary in nature. If you need cash, there are ways to get at it, and we're working diligently on this. And one thing that I do want to warn you is that it is Wild West as far as how the actual companies themselves execute. So while we have a federal mandate and a set of laws that allows us to do it, the actual actuaries or third-party administrators may not agree. So you may run into that issue, and that's one of the things I've been busy with is sending out copies of the actual CARES Act to actuaries and third-party administrators, people like that.
There were also some not too surprising considering President Trump's field, his businesses are real estate. There were some significant real estate benefits in the first bill.
I got a question for you, Richard.
Yeah.
This is Bruce. I applied for the PPP on April 3rd, the first day, and I didn't get funding for some reason. But also I had my employee file for unemployment just in case I didn't get funded. And so she is receiving unemployment, but my bank, B of A, said that they have my application and they're going to put it through again. I don't need to file anything else. So if I get approved for the PPP, how does that work if my employee is collecting unemployment and I'm supposed to use that to pay her? That's one question. The second question is for myself. How do I get paid? Is my draw, since I'm a sole proprietor, considered payroll? And does that constitute part of the 75%?
You can use your income for that. Typically, we ask for a Schedule C and a P&L for the last year to factor in your income. As far as the first question on your employee, once you get the funds, you're expected to hire back employees. What you do with them is it might be a different story, as if you're closed, there's not too much you can do. But the whole thing is to get people back to work and receiving money. So she could file for unemployment, and you could still apply for the PPP program.
Okay, and so she is getting the unemployment. If I get funded, let's say in 2 weeks I get funded, does she stop her unemployment and I start paying her on payroll again?
Well, if you don't put her back on payroll in a reasonable amount of time, and I believe that's considered 8 weeks, if you don't bring her back, then the PPP may not get, may turn into a loan. You may not get it forgiven.
Yeah, Bruce, so we, at the Boys and Girls Club, we received our loan already. So we had all of our employees out on unemployment, and we received funding last Friday. And so we, as of Monday, all of our staff will be back on payroll. So their unemployment benefits will stop and they will be back on payroll as of Monday. From the date that the loan is funded, you have 8 weeks to utilize those funds for payroll and for rent and things like that. So you have a very strict 8-week window. So you want to bring them back onto payroll ASAP, because otherwise you won't expend the 75% of funds for payroll, and then you will not be able to have that loan forgiven.
Is that 8 weeks, just 8 weeks? You have to start using it within 8 weeks, or you have to use the loan completely within 8 weeks?
Within 8 weeks. So the clock starts at when your loan is drawn.
And then you, at the end of 8 weeks,
whatever you use in that 8-week period should have been for 75% of, should have been used for payroll.
Okay.
Okay, that's
The
helpful.
clock starts when the loan is funded.
Yes.
And then Richard, this is James. I had a quick question for you. From what you're seeing on your end from an application perspective, is it kind of everybody that applied on the first round already has an application number and didn't get funded? Are those the people that are first in line for this second round of funding? Or is it kind of just a first come, first, kind of like everyone's reapplying with applications and the first round is kind of in the past and doesn't really make a difference?
Well, with us, the people that got an application in but didn't get funded because the money ran out, those people are in line for the next round. Don't ask me to define what line is, though. I don't know if it's a stack of paper.
Yeah.
It's probably not that. But we just move people over if they didn't get money the first round.
Okay.
Just a what if question, again, back to this 8 weeks, in order to potentially maximize the monies for an employee. What if you had an employee that you then left on unemployment for 7 weeks, and that in the 8th week, you gave them a huge, 8 weeks worth of salary in 1 week? Are you still in compliance with the program? And that way you maximize the employees' takeout as far as what monies they can draw to keep themselves and their families together.
I don't have an answer for that, Dick.
Sounds like a legal question to me.
That's either a legal or an IRS or an SBA question.
The only thing with that is that we had to provide, your payroll runs. And so on your payroll runs, it's going to show you like what your monthly payroll is. So I think it may be a red flag if you have like low 1 month of payroll and then the second month of payroll is extremely high. I think that may be a red flag, but
definitely a red flag.
Yeah.
What's done with that information,
I don't know. Yeah.
We don't know. Yeah.
I seriously doubt the SBA is sure.
The SBA got this about 3 days before banks got it. So no, they don't know. And we've been starting to ask questions about loan forgiveness because now people are getting money. They want to know, they want to make sure they stay within the compliance. And our loan documents make reference to the law that was passed. It's not specifically in there, and it's subject to change.
Yeah, Richard, this is something that's come up in our industry with the child activities, with gymnastics, dance centers, swim, and some of the people that have gotten the PPP opened up the hiring to bring everybody back, but their employees are very disgruntled because of the $600 a week addition to their unemployment benefits. They're getting screwed financially. So, you know, do you sense that there might be a relaxing of the forgiveness period to allow those funds to be used at a later date? And if not, then everyone just, you know, forgoes the forgiveness and, you know, has it as a loan. But it's an issue that's popping up in a lot of different businesses.
It's definitely an issue. You don't necessarily have to bring back the same employee though. As long as you bring back an employee or hire a new employee, I believe that fulfills the requirements.
Although I think if you're turning down the work, then you're not eligible for unemployment then.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the unemployment is higher than the salary?
Because of the federal $600 a week bonus, and that goes through
Right. Okay.
July, I believe.
That's what I thought. I just want to understand.
Has anyone run into the situation with their insurance policies for disaster relief that they have discovered in the fine print with COVID-19 that they are not covered?
It's pretty universal from what we've heard that it's
not covered. Viruses are excluded.
Generally speaking, business interruption insurance, it doesn't include acts of God like COVID-19. One thing that the California Department of Insurance thought would be appropriate is to send an email to everybody who's an insurance agent. And apparently insurance companies, insurance agents have been discouraging claims on business interruption insurance. And DOI said, no, that's not cool. So if you have business interruption insurance, you should at least attempt to make a claim. If nothing else, it'll provide you tax documents that you did have a financial loss.
My suggestion is to read the policy.
Well, yeah, leave that to an attorney.
Well, you can actually read it yourself. Just look under exclusions, and you paw through that stuff. Eventually, you'll find a clause that either has virus or not virus in it. So, you know.
Or the best thing would be to just give Fred a copy of your insurance, and then he can tell you whether or not it's.
Yeah, believe me, I've read a lot of those policies too. I've filed a couple of insurance claims or cases under bad faith for insurance companies, and these things are so complicated. It's just unbelievable. Yep. But anyway, it's, you know, look over your policy or call your agent. Your agent may be able to direct you to the clause, so you don't have to hunt through the whole damn policy.
I got something from Blue Shield, an email, and it said that in addition to waiving out-of-pocket costs for COVID-19 screenings and tests, waiving co-pays and co-insurance and deductibles for COVID-19 treatments received between March 1 and May 31st. Giving our members access to virtual care options, including zero co-pays for all teledoc virtual care visits through May 31st, even for visits that aren't related to COVID-19. And they're also providing virtual access to mental health resources. And so access to teledoc, behavioral health, and zero co-pays through May 31st. So that's what Blue Shield is doing.
Wow.
Yeah, just a quick comment. One of the things that we've been flooded with here in our office is people scrambling to find out what their rights are and what they can do with their money and do about their money. And I already mentioned the ERISA, the modified ERISA rules. In addition to that, we're always recommending our clients contact their car loans or credit card lenders, their mortgage holders and people of that nature, and find out if there's any programs available. I myself have a BMW, I call BMW Motor Credit, And they're like, oh, sure, no problem. And they gave me 2 months off, no payments for 2 months, no interest on that. They just tacked the payment on the back end of the loan. So I got 2 car loan payments, borrowed, if you will, at no interest. I'm like, okay, fine. So I got to recommend everybody, if you've got a debt or a bill that's due, call and find out what kind of programs are available for you.
I did that with Wells Fargo, and I said I wanted a deferral because the information that they put out, what I read, was they'll just tack it onto the end of the loan. So I said, great, I get 3 months of no payments, which I did. So then I get a letter in the mail that says they're going to ask for it all in 90 days. So I called the guy up and I said, look, I don't want to do that. Take the money out now and put me back on the program. And so what he said, well, I said, well, he said that might be an option. Well, what is going to happen in 90 days? You're going to ask for the money? You're going to put it on the end of the loan. Well, that wasn't specifically laid out the thing. He gave me a whole bunch of rigmarole about it. And I finally said, screw it, just cancel it, take my money out now, and put me back in the program. Well, he had to re-enroll me in the program that was an automatic debit to my checking account. So this Wells Fargo, beware of Wells Fargo, and beware of anybody.
It's not just Wells Fargo. I've read articles where a number of banks are doing that very thing. I guess the government has asked. They didn't direct. They requested that mortgage companies support what's going on in this thing by deferring mortgage payments. And so they didn't tell them that you have to extend it out on the other end of the loan. They just said, we're asking for you to offer forbearance. And in the news article I was reading, there were half a dozen people from different banks who went to their banks, and they were told the same thing, that at the end of the 3-month forbearance, there would be a balloon payment within 90 days of what they were in arrears, or their note would be in default. And then supposedly they went back, at least one of them went back, and the bank agreed they would extend it on the end of their mortgage. But it's not a given that they would do that. It's
right.
I don't know.
It's not mandated. There's no federal law or guidance. It's just hey, please be nice to these borrowers. Right. And it's literally, it's all over the map of how it works. My commercial loan on this particular building is they called me and they're like, no payments for 6 months. I'm like, oh,
you were
okay,
lucky.
Fine. I'll go along with that.
I was going to ask that question about the general policy for business leases. Are there is there a greater sense of owners being cooperative or being consideration for businesses being closed for a period of time?
Well, I know our office, lesser in Tustin, is not.
And remember, it's impossible to evict somebody right now.
Right. But do you think they'll do collections later?
So there's a legislation that's it's a federal legislation that's been introduced that is requiring, although I don't think this is going to pass, but because it sounds so ridiculous, but that landlords to refund the rent, any rents that have been paid for March to their tenants, and not charge any rent at all for the duration of the COVID-19 crisis, and the only relief for the landlord is you don't have to pay your mortgage. So if you're like me and you own a rental property that you don't have a mortgage on, you're screwed. And so
no, Gary, if you have a rental property, the government says you qualify for the EIDL loan. Oh, wait a minute, they use that money up. Never mind.
Right, yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah, you don't get any of that.
To answer somebody's
I have a question.
We have our program is a 90-day extension, and we just move the principal amount and the interest down the road. There's no balloon.
Oh yeah, the other thing that I heard, and this was on, in fact, the legislators were talking about this on C-SPAN yesterday, was that some banks, they're with the forbearance, they're forbearing payment, or so they're either making it a balloon payment or tacking it on to the end, but they're still reporting to the credit agencies that you're 30 days in arrears or 60 or 90 days if you don't pay it.
I think typically they just don't report anything. So you could take, at least that was what I've been told. It might have a slightly negative effect, but they don't report you're late, but they don't also report that you made a payment.
Right.
So it should have, at least
Some do. I know that, you know.
They're not making a negative report.
It's all over the map. There are some financial institutions like Richard, who his company has taken, you know, the high ground as far as doing things the right way. Then there are other institutions that are not doing it very well. And one of the other problems that we're faced with is you have some financial institutions that are so large that people in the front lines have no idea what the intention with the C-level executives are. And so you get really piss poor execution. So literally, folks, it's all over the map. You got to ask, make sure you get stuff in writing, just like any attorney would recommend. It's like, you know, get it in writing.
Quick question. Carl, are you having a lot of tenants that are not able to pay right now?
Well, the apartment tenants, it's surprising there's not as many as we thought. But of course, we don't have any, we've stopped all rent increases. And there's no evictions allowed in California right now, or not just California.
But you're doing okay. I mean,
well, there are some where the whole idea, and it's worse with some of the industrial tenants, but the whole concept is deferral. The government says that you need to defer the rent, and then, so let's just use a hypothetical example. The rent's $1,000 a month, and you defer the 2 months rent, or you reduce 2 months rent. Let's do it that way. You reduce the rent for 3 months to $750, and so that means you've reduced 750 total, 250 times 3. Then over the next, say, 12 months, it's negotiable. The tenant's expected to make that up, but that means they're going to go from 750 to 12 or whatever it is, higher than they were paying before because of the deferral. And the fear a lot of us have is a lot of those people, when that happens, if this keeps dragging out, they're going to say they're going to want to keep paying the lower amount, or they're going to walk. You know, so it's pretty serious. Over in Phoenix, I don't know how many tenants we have, but we've had 32 workouts already on multi-tenant industrial type clients. Where, you know, again, this type of approach to buy some time, not all owners are doing that, but most of them are, because, you know, the worst thing you can do is have a vacancy.
Right. I have, well, you can say 12 tenants, 13 tenants. Every single one of them is paid.
So then you're very fortunate.
Yeah, but they're all in the, you know, the 1,500 to 2,500. I don't have anything over that from a rental standpoint.
See, again, you're very blessed because there's an awful lot of tenants.
Yeah,
and
some of these people, you know, have been working from their home already. They seem to, they have, you know, not fancy jobs, but they're important jobs, I guess you might say. So they've been able to continue on, which has been a good thing for us. So
yeah, well, you're fortunate. Again, there's a
but boy, it's amazing when you drive by Enderley Center or any of these shopping centers and there's no cars. I mean, I don't know, we're going to have all these small businesses. I can't believe they're going to survive. I mean, they're going to go by the wayside. They're going to end up filing bankruptcy.
Well, a lot of them, a lot of retail clients will, for sure.
Yeah.
No question about it.
Yeah.
This is not going to be over in a heartbeat. This is a big one.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting thought. For anybody who has commercial office space, businesses are finding out they don't need the office space they thought they needed. So the demand for office space is going to get real soft here over the next year or 2 years.
And I agree with that, James, except the flip side of that, because that's exactly the way I feel. But the flip side is, out of caution, most of the offices that they do have in our large, we don't have a lot of office buildings anymore, thank God, but is that you know, they're tight little squares. Everybody's close together. You know, where it used to be, there were more private offices. So that might temper that a little bit, but no question about it. The demand for office space is going to go down. So.
Yep.
Rich, I have a question for you, going back to the PPP, because I've been hearing different things on time frame for people. What was your average, you know, from loan application to funding for those that funded turnaround?
You know, I don't have a date on that, time on that, Josie. It varies. A lot of it depended on me getting back the reasonable documentation that we needed. One thing to keep in mind is this only ran out to the public on April 3rd. What's today, the 23rd? This has only been around 20 days.
20 days, yeah, because it's one of my clients got funding in like 2 days, and another one's still waiting, and they sound like the same boat where people mentioned they submitted it back in the beginning of April, and they still don't have it. So it's kind of funky, different time frames here. And going back to using it within the 8 weeks, if they feel like maybe they didn't need that much, they can easily return the difference without paying any penalty, correct?
Yes.
And there is, from what I understand, there's no penalty unless you don't use, and really, penalty is a very loose term, but you won't run into the loan 1% issue as long as you use it for your payroll and utilities or mortgage, correct?
Yes.
All right.
So are the ones you have, Richard, they're already queued up?
I've got a big queue just waiting for the money.
So it's up to the government to just suck them in, then whatever you.
Exactly. This has always kind of been a experience for us, because in the past, when we did a loan, we did the loan and we took the bank's money and gave it to the customer. And now we've got this third party involved that is telling me, yeah, we don't have the money yet, don't make any loans. So it's kind of weird. Typically,
it's not of your control at that time, at this point.
It is, and you know, these are customers that I've been dealing with for years, and they're really hurting, and it's kind of tough that I can't tell them. I don't have a definite answer. You know, when it's a bank loan and it's not moving through quickly for some reason, I just call up somebody within the bank and yell at them, discuss it with them. It's not working this way. So
you don't even have visibility about status of.
I don't. All I know is where the loan and the request is as far as it is within my bank.
And again, it's all over the map when it comes to different financial institutions. I had a nonprofit make an application like April 7th or 8th, and they were told they missed the boat. And that, I have no idea. It could be the bank, it could be the SBA, it could be the handoff between the two. It's all over the map.
It's very possible that what that institution, they said you missed the boat because they were so swamped in the first couple of days that they said, we got to shut it off. You know, I've got people that do stuff behind me, and they're working evening shifts so that when I get stuff in, they can do the backroom stuff. So it's you know, you got to keep your employees healthy also.
This has really been helpful, Richard. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Do we have any other any other comments or questions for Richard?
Well, I just sent a link on the chat with a link to the proposed legislation that's been put up there for canceling rent payments, not just making them later, but canceling them entirely. So
that sucks.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
Yeah. Welcome to San Francisco, right?
No, that's Ilhan Omar. That's the what is she from, Minnesota or something, or I don't know. The federal legislation. It's geared towards the people in New York, I'm sure, but it's
Well, continuing with our programming in this trying times, next week our speaker will be Greg Franklin, who will talk to us about the Tustin Unified School District, what's going on now, what the near term looks like, and then potentially what the plans are for the future with the school district, both on funding wise as well as education, managing students in education and teachers. So I think it'll be a very interesting discussion. So that will be our speaker on Thursday next week.
May I say something?
Yes, Helen?
Last week we were on a Zoom with the La Quinta Rotary, and Linda Evans, the mayor, spoke, and she wears two hats. She's a mayor, and she's also the administrator for the John F. Kennedy Hospital. It was pretty interesting to hear that they were distributing a lot of funds in La Quinta through their economic recovery funding, and they had put out millions in for small business. And we've been trying to find out what's going on in Orange County, the leadership from the supervisors, and what are they doing to step up to help small business in our county.
Well, the interesting thing too is that one of the monies that are being distributed, I was reading about it on the internet this morning, Orange County got a big chunk of money, but it went to Orange County. It doesn't go to a city unless a city has over 500,000 population, and no city in Orange County has that population. So there was no city in Orange County that got money. It all went to the county supervisors for them to decide. And apparently the mayor of Santa Ana got 31 of the 35 mayors in Orange County to sign a letter that went to the Orange County supervisors asking for a prorated distribution of those funds, based on population, to go out to the various cities within Orange County. So it's kind of an interesting thing. We watch on TV and we hear the mayor of LA talk about everything that's going on and what they're doing. And it's like a wasteland down here in Orange County. We don't know who's doing what to who.
Is there anybody in Orange County that's making, statements or, telling us?
You get it in the Orange County Register when they decide to publish something, but we don't get, I don't think we get any regular, there's no regular
media
news
doing
feeds I've seen. The only news feeds I've seen is when something dramatic happens, then it makes the press and it makes, the nightly news kind of thing. But on a regular basis, we're not getting, I don't know of any daily updates that are going on, talking about what's going on in Orange County.
The supervisors have been. I know Don Wagner has been. Maybe that's because I follow him on Instagram, but every day it shows his announcements or whatever from the day before.
Okay.
And the county health department has a very updated website with information by city, totals for the county.
Oh yeah, every day I check it.
Yeah.
And I think it's fewer than 2,000.
Yeah, 1827 as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. Orange County's been blessed so far. Of course, there's, this new testing shows that there's people carrying it that don't know they have it. They're asymptomatic and they're giving it to other people. But as a whole, there have been very few deaths, and Orange County has fared very well. Newport Beach, much higher percentage, as an example. So.
Well, that's all well and good, but then there's the economic side for small business in Orange County that.
Well, I know listen, trust me, I know what you're talking about. Small business people are sucking it, and that's just the bottom line. It's.
So does anybody know, what the plan is to allow businesses to reopen? Is there? I mean, I hear all kinds of stuff in LA, and I, hear things in New York, but what's going on here?
Supposedly Orange County was going to follow LA County as far as.
Really?
That means we're not going back to work until May 15th.
Oh.
So when?
May 15th, yeah.
Well, Garcetti's already talking about.
So if we're following LA County, does that mean we report our neighbors like they do in LA?
I will tell you, real estate business is open and people are buying houses. I showed a house in Orange day before yesterday 3 buyers, all qualified. Two of them were buying it with their son. I think that everybody, jammed into one house now. They're looking to expand, get rid of the kid. And I did sell it with 3, and I probably had 5 more people wanting to see it. It was interesting showing it though, because I can only have 2 people in at the same time. I have to wear masks, gloves, and all this jazz, and wipe off everything when they leave with, germicidal, and it was very interesting, a whole different program than I'm used to.
So I have a suggestion.
It was nice to get out, but
I have a
so
suggestion.
it's alive and moving. So surprising, but it's working.
On the economic
so I
side,
think we want benefits from this.
Go ahead, Carl.
Jonathan, would you be willing to ask Supervisor Wagner if he might be willing to be one of our speakers? Because he came once before when he was running for office.
Yeah, that's not a problem. We have
Or
time.
somebody on his staff if he can't.
Yeah, we could take care of it.
We have the Mayor Pro Tem on May 6th as our speaker. So Greg Franklin is next week. Mayor Pro Tem is following that. And if we can, Jonathan, do you want to see if we can get Don Wagner to join us on the, what would be the 13th then of May?
Sure.
Okay.
We know people.
I don't know if you saw the message, but I do have a client who is in the career of making the testing kits for COVID-19. The woman was right in the middle of all of her financial transactions, and literally we can't get a hold of her. She's been working 12 and 14-hour days to make test kits. But I can reach out to her and see if she can join us for a 15-minute Zoom, maybe talk about the medical side or the testing side, if anybody's interested.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
How about reach out?
It seems like it might be easier for us to get speakers when we do Zoom meetings.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because they don't have to leave and drive somewhere for half an hour and then, wait for 30 minutes and eat.
And they don't have to listen to the Fine Master.
Well,
I'll remember that, Carl.
When we're back to regular meetings, we might consider having having some speakers that are hard to get appear by Zoom. We could watch them on TV, and they wouldn't have to travel.
We can
might
do
be able to
that.
get.
Yeah. I'll tell you something else that's fun, just on a lighter note with Zoom. We have a wine club in our community. And so we are having a virtual tasting on Sunday. And we're going to be all tasting the same wine. And everybody is coming by the house to pick up a bottle of that wine today or tomorrow. And then we'll meet on Zoom to taste that wine and talk about it. And then just share and just have fun together via Zoom. So that's something, be creative in your free time. Think of something to do with
leaving the wine on your
family,
doorstep?
friends, and neighbors.
Are you leaving your wine outside on the doorstep?
Yeah, just come
What
by.
time are you putting those out?
I told him the wine will be on the doorstep. Wine's on the doorstep with a piggy bank, and drop your money in the piggy bank and pick up your bottle of wine.
And join us.
But I'm going to tell you, I've got rings, so I'll know if any of you show up.
Or masks.
I'll be wearing a hat and a mask, and so you won't recognize me.
Okay.
Yeah, I could just see you describing. Yeah, we have a wine thief that was wearing a mask and rubber gloves.
Okay, I thank everyone for the meeting today. I think we'll turn you loose and go back to all of your at-home endeavors. Stay home, stay safe, and wash your hands. And we will see you next week, if not before. So the meeting is adjourned.
Good seeing everyone.
Bye.
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 Don and Lori.
Bye.
Bye.